We're going to be looking at the controversial Georgia voting law that Governor Brian Kemp signed into law. We're going to be looking at what is in it and how it could change Georgia's path to being a swing state and it being trending Democratic. So, there are a lot of provisions in it. Let's start. Voters will have less time to request absentee ballots. That means if they want absentee ballots, especially in a public health crisis like in COVID-19, they have a much shorter window to do so. There are strict new ID requirements for absentee ballots. In a lot of cases, people don't have such IDs, and it's difficult for them to use it. It's now illegal for election officials to mail out applications. In many states, they did that this year, especially because of COVID-19, because lots of people couldn't vote in person. However, this makes it illegal to do so. Drop boxes still exist, but they restricted a lot. Now, this limits the same. Earlier in 2020, there are 94 drop boxes across the Fulton, Cobb, DeKalb, and Gwinnett counties that make up metropolitan Atlanta. This new law limits the same 4 counties to at most 23 drop boxes. Mobile voting centers are essentially banned. Early voting is expanded in a lot of early counties. However, it is probably not in more populous counties. So, this in a lot of the more populous Atlanta counties, people work long jobs, and this makes it easier for people in rural counties where they tend to have more rural sort of lifestyle where they don't work such long hours and aren't that involved. It really gives them more opportunities to vote compared to those in the main counties. A big one, lots of people talked about it, offering food or water to voters waiting in line now risks misdemeanor charges in court. That means that if you are not an election official and you give food or water to anyone waiting in line, be it a young child with their parent or a 103-year-old, like one of those who want, like a female 113-year-old in Iowa who caucused for Hillary Clinton, you can't give them anything, food, water, or any. It's shocking. If you go to the wrong polling place, it will be even harder to vote. They shuttered more than 214 voting precincts. If election problem arise, this happened in Georgia. In the runoff, they had election problems in a few counties, I forgot which, and they had extra time. So this is a small change, but it probably will have a significant time. Any order extending poll hours beyond 9 p.m. So they have a lot of restrictions on this. With a mix of changes to how vote counting, high turnout, elections would have a long wait for results. Election officials can no longer accept third-party funding. With an eye towards voter fraud, the state attorney general will manage an election hotline. And this is a big one. The Republican-controlled legislature has far more control over the state election board. This is supposed to be an independent board, but yet the legislature is getting far more control. The Secretary of State has lost his power as a voting member of the state election board. The GOP legislature is empowered to suspend county election officials, and runoff elections will happen faster and could become harder to manage. Shortening the runoff time will affect both the early voting and military overseas voters. So, interestingly enough, federal law says mail ballots for military and overseas voters must be mailed out 45 days before an election, so these voters will receive ranked choice general election ballots similar to in the main Senate race, rather than second separate ballots for the runoff, because if they're having it much sooner, then they may not be able to receive the items. And so on the original ballot, they just have rank each candidate, and if the first person is disqualified, for example, being a minor party candidate like a libertarian, then their second choice candidate, for example, a Democrat, would be counted. And now if we take a look at why turnout isn't easy to turn off. So the fight over the Georgia law is just the latest example. It's So as I said, there are a lot of things. It makes in-person voting easier, but as I said, it includes weekends. However, there are also some big wins for Democrats. I mean, adding machines. I'm not saying this is only favoring Republicans, but it does shorten off many other things. So I think it mostly favors the Republicans. And if we look at, let's go back to Yamps and let's look at the 2022 Senate. And then I want to look at the 2024 presidential election. Both of them had lots of interesting things. Georgia could play a key role. So if we just look at the Senate, Democrats are going to win quite a few states. I'm just going to go with the assumption that they win key states. Let's just get started by doing so. And hold all their seats. New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York. As well as Illinois. Republicans, assuming Jorgensen runs again in Wisconsin, Utah, Idaho, Alaska, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, assuming Chuck Grassley runs again, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Kentucky, Indiana, South Carolina, Florida, Missouri, assuming Eric Greitens or whoever runs will win, North Carolina, assuming Richard Burr's open seat goes to GOP, and Ohio, same thing there. Let's think about it. If Georgia, right? The reason this is so important, the reason Georgia could be the key state, assuming Republicans flip this seat, then Democrats would, if Republicans win, Georgia is the state. If Democrats win it, they control the legislature. If Republicans win it, if they control the state. Now let's change it a little. For example, if Democrats win Pennsylvania, which they're expected to do. But let's see Republicans flip Arizona back from Mark Kelly. Then Georgia is the key state. If Republicans flip Nevada. If they flip Colorado, which is more unlikely, Michael Bennet is far more popular and well-known. Not well-known, but he has a better chance. If they flip New Hampshire, there's so many options. And Georgia could be the critical state. Now, if you look at it on the presidential level, interesting things are there. We have some interesting things there, too. So, sidebar, let's just start by classifying Georgia. And there we are. Okay. Now, Democrats will win in Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Hawaii, the Northeast. Not going to classify New Hampshire just yet. Maine at large and Maine's first district, New York, Virginia, and Illinois. Republicans are winning Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Nebraska at large, Nebraska's first and third districts, Northern South Dakota, Kansas, Oklahoma, Alaska, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, Missouri, and South Carolina. So let's just go with what likely might happen. Republicans say Democrats are going to keep Colorado. Republicans are likely going to keep Iowa. Democrats keep Minnesota. Republicans keep North Carolina. I think Texas they're going to keep too. Democrats keep New Mexico. I think the Republicans keep Ohio. They have a good chance of winning Wisconsin, Maine district, Maine 2nd district, Nebraska 2nd district. New Hampshire will go the Democrats probably. Republicans are on track to keep Florida, and they're calling for a long time. Then Democrats are probably going to win Arizona and Michigan. And to be honest, no, Arizona is probably going to go red. Democrats could win here. And that's the thing. There are a lot of combinations, but Georgia is that all key state. If Republicans win it, boom, they win. Democrats win, they win. Georgia is going to become one of those key states. And especially with this voting law, it severely impacts it. It also expands it in some ways, but I love that this could change. Now, I don't think Wisconsin is the hard one to explain. I mean, it's much harder to do so. If we just change this, Democrats will win. So it's extremely close, obviously. And I don't think Arizona would go Democratic in the next presidential election, unless, of course, Donald Trump is nominated, which in that case, the map would look very different. In my opinion, that map could look something like Democrats winning here, Democrats winning in Nebraska 2nd, Maine 2nd, Wisconsin, Iowa perhaps, even Ohio, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina. Could go as far as this, maybe even in Texas. so many different options here. But I just think looking at the current state of the electoral map, looking at how things seem to be, Republicans have a reasonable chance of needing Georgia to make that win. And that's just my thought, but I think it makes sense. I mean, Democrats are 279. Why is that? Let's just take a look. Okay, Georgia. Yep, let's fix that. Exactly. So Georgia is that all critical state. Even in 2020, it didn't actually matter that much. But if we go to USA, which one am I looking for? There we are. National 2022 House. I'm not saying this is that important, but in Georgia there are many key districts. So I'm not actually going to go in detail into this. I was trying to find a filled-in one, but let's see if there's already a current Congress. House. That's what I was looking for. So Democrats currently control it. And that's actually changed. Republicans do control it there. And this is actually from the 2018 elections, but there's still a lot of things that could change. Again, I'm just going to Georgia, because Georgia is that all-critical state. I mean, here, there are many competitive districts on the outskirts of the city in Atlanta area. So many of these competitive districts in Georgia because, Georgia isn't one of those states where they have the urban-rural divide. I mean, they're the tiny urban districts in Tennessee, and you can see all the big districts are rural. But in Georgia, it's different. For example, take this district. I don't know which number it is, but it's huge, and yet it goes Democratic. So there are a lot of options to play around with here. This includes the city of Savannah, so there are some options there too. And that's why I think Georgia is going to be one of these all-critical states, especially on the Senate and presidential levels, because it's so important for both parties to do well there. And I don't know what exactly this law could have the effect on, but it certainly is important. I mean, again, if we just go through this and look at how it could be. If Republicans just keep Pennsylvania in their column, or even if they lose Pennsylvania and they just make one flip, then they're on track to have a Senate majority. If they get Georgia, and if they have, and assuming there are a lot of assumptions I'm making. For example, Republicans keeping North Carolina and Ohio and stuff, and assuming Ron Johnson runs, because if he doesn't, Wisconsin is an easy win for Democrats. But yeah, Georgia is that all-critical state that decides who has the majority. Obviously, I'm going to say Democrats are going to win Pennsylvania. They have John Fetterman there. But to be honest, I think Nevada might go or Arizona might go. One of these two both have a potential to go. I'm not saying they will. New Hampshire, it doesn't seem to be classified right now, but it just seems to be heading more to the right. What am I saying? To the left. But these two states, Nevada especially, I really think it could go red. I mean, I do plan to make a video about this, and I do in my future swing states video you could check out. I do talk about how Nevada has been moving to the right in some ways. And that's why I think Georgia is that all-critical state. If Democrats keep Arizona narrowly, for example, and Republicans keep If Republicans keep Nevada, it could significantly change the balance of power in the Senate. With Georgia again being that all-critical state that either gives the Republicans or the Democrats a majority in the United States Senate. And now I would like to thank you for watching Tane Politic. If you like that video, do give us a thumbs up, and if you're interested in having more content like this, you might just want to hit that subscribe button. Thank you. Brought to you by Tane Politic.